Hello everybody, it's Sarah and today I have a review for you! Yay! Once again. That review is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in the Reckoners trilogy, also by Brandon Sanderson, which is a YA high fantasy series. That's amazing. I love this first book. This review is going to be pretty much spoiler free. If I do mention some spoilers, I will tell you beforehand so you can fast forward or mute until the spoiler is gone. First, let me start with a summary. This book takes place in Chicago 10 years after something happened that is called the Calamity. Nobody really knows what Calamity is, but something happened during that time, and that something is that some people started developing superpowers. And those people with the superpowers are now called epics. The problem is that all of them kind of turned corrupt and bad and horrible and started killing people. And now it's 10 years after that, the epics basically own the world, and there's only one resistance, which is the Reckoners. Our main character David wants to join the Reckoners because in Chicago the epic that is in power is called Steelheart, and this epic killed his father. Everybody thinks that Steelheart is immortal and can't be killed and can't even be wounded, but David knows better because David has seen Steelheart bleed. And that is where we start the book. David trying to join the Reckoners. First of all, I love this book. I love all of Brandon Sanderson's books, but I have to say it's my second least favorite of Brandon Sanderson's books because I tend to enjoy adult high fantasy more than middle grade or YA high fantasy, so I only liked Alcatraz less than this book, but I still love the book. I think this book is really short, it's a really fast read, and at the same time there is a lot of world building, but Brandon Sanderson kind of can work a lot of world building into this book because he plays with tropes and known concepts like the concept of superpowers and also that everyone who has a superpower has one weakness, which a lot of the time is very random, and that's like, it's very humorous, this book. I enjoyed it. Brandon Sanderson just manages to write books with a very dark story a lot of the times, and at the same time it's just like really fun. He has a lot of humor and he plays a lot with words. In this book he plays a lot with metaphors, and I just love Brandon Sanderson's writing in general. For my liking personally, this book also was a little bit too much like the Mistborn series. The concept seems the same. You have one like super powerful being who is a tyrant and just everybody else is worthless, and you have a small group of people who try to do the impossible and kill that tyrant. So that was kind of similar. At the same time, this is a lot more YA, so it's a lot easier to get into. And I would really recommend starting with this book if you want to get into Brandon Sanderson's writing and into his works. I talked earlier about the writing in this book and that I love it. A lot of times I find that in YA books the writing is not technically as beautiful as in adult high fantasy, which doesn't mean that I think that it's not good writing. It's good writing, but it's just very plain. And at the same time, in high fantasy, writing can be very, I don't want to say flowery because that's not really what I'm searching for, but more lyrical and just good writing, just like honestly really good, awesome writing. And with Brandon Sanderson, I always feel like he has the perfect middle. His writing isn't plain, it's beautiful, but at the same time it doesn't add anything unnecessary, which in other fantasy often is the case, which can make it hard to get into, which of course at the same time makes the writing so much more beautiful because it's sometimes very poetic, but it's not that easy to get into. And Brandon Sanderson's writing is plain yet beautiful, and so I just love it. Because it's not the kind of plain that other YA writers have, like for example Sarah J. Maas, whose writing I don't like so much. I hope you understood what I was talking about there. I don't feel like I explained it very well, but anyways, let's move on. I love the characters in this book. They weren't as well developed as in others of his books, but I still really enjoyed them. And of course, like, this is, what, 400 pages? Yeah, 400 pages. So you don't have as much time developing characters as if you have 700, 800 pages. So I really liked them. They were solid characters. They just maybe weren't as deep or as three-dimensional as some of his other characters were. One of the things that you can say about Brandon Sanderson is that he always kind of lacks diversity. So if you're searching especially for fantasy books with very diverse characters, that's not exactly something that you will find in his book. And I'm talking about diversity as in different ethnicities, genders, sexualities. That's not Brandon Sanderson's strong point, I feel, but what I do think his strong point is that the characteristics and the character of each of the characters is very different, and they all come from different backgrounds, and they never really are that much the same. Although if you write as many books as Brandon Sanderson has written, of course you will find a character type in a book that you have already read about in another of his books, which also was the case here. But I just really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really easy read. It was easy to get into. The writing was beautiful. And the complaints, I guess, that I have about this book, like the lack of diversity, aren't really something that diminishes my enjoyment of this book and the way that I loved this book while reading it. That's just kind of something that's a problem overall in high fantasy. But if you want a good YA high fantasy novel, just go ahead and read it. I loved it. I love David, I love Megan. My favorite character is probably Abraham. Cody is also pretty cool. And yeah, go and read it. It's totally worth it.